When Mark died, I wasn't prepared for how deeply it would affect me. I'm not inclined to be sentimental about death, and I have a sort of easy come, easy go attitude, generally speaking. But there was a small group of us that cared very deeply about Mark's presence on the planet. More than we. I mean, it wasn't a question of his personality or anything, because in my case, because I didn't really know it that well. But it was the fact that he was there doing the quality of work and the kind of songwriting that he was doing, and known by so few people, that those of us who did know him, it seemed like there was a kind of that he provided a bit of a link among a group of us, and that when he died, it was all of a sudden there was this big hole there.
It was 1976. I just remember this sort of shy, quiet Georgia boy with way too much curly brown hair. We came outside and he took his guitar out and he sat on this wooden fence and he started playing. And I looked at my friend and he looked at me and I just shook my head like, this guy is the genuine article. I mean, it was just like finding a treasure.
Mark is going to be missed from my perspective because of the relationship we had, and there's very few people in this life that we find that are like soul brothers, or soul mates, or that type of thing. And I got a lot from him, from his lyrics, from his music. But all that aside, if Mark wasn't doing music and didn't do music, there was a person there that, for me, genuinely fed me as a friend. I mean, the last 9 years of my life, I was real close to Mark. Initially, I was just purely a person who benefited from his music. I took from it selfishly and got encouragement and got friendship from the lyrics and the way he performed and things like that. As often as I could afford, saying, Mark, why don't you come to Boston? And that became sort of the conduit through which I could have a relationship with him. As I book a few gigs, I get to hang out with him. And out of that experience was born the concept of Fingerprint, which is a company that is co-owned by Mark and myself and another friend.
The band Vigilantes had just struck a deal with Fingerprint Records in somewhere around December of '91, and we went into the studio with Mark in January of '92 to record Killing Floor. Mark was one of the principal parties in Fingerprint Records, but also did a lot of the producing on projects. He was nonstop, and I think in some ways, as I've compared notes with, with like Pierce and Pat Terry, he seemed to have been burning both ends of the candle for quite some time. A friend of mine was there and took video footage of Mark's last performance, and it was very passionate. It was very intense. Mark played a lot of mandolin, did a lot of the songs off his last record, Satellite Sky.
Before I could fashion my poverty, before I distrusted the night, I must have known something, and those were the times I lived for tonight. Why? I say, why, mama, why? Why can't I sleep in peace tonight underneath the satellite sky? Why? I say, why, mama, why? Why can't I sleep in peace tonight underneath the satellite sky?
And it was beautiful, I know that the actual heart attack occurred sometime during the performance, but I can't tell where it happened.
It's not surprising that it took Mark's passing to wake people up. But it's disappointing, for what Mark had to offer. In his music, obviously it's still here for us to enjoy and appreciate, but as a person, to be able to talk with him or see him live in his concerts, that's what we'll miss, because there was an added dimension there. The effort was to do something that would be a genuine tribute to Mark. And I think probably the greatest tribute that any of us who are musically inclined could do would be to let other people hear his music, and I think that's what that night was about, was to get up and cover some of those songs and reminisce a little about him as a person and what he was about and what he stood for, but most importantly, the songs.
Sitting with the Bible in
his hand. He thumbs the well-worn pages like before. The evening young and he an aged man seeks to understand his maker more. Tears in the city, nobody is really surprised. You know, my heart's taking a beating, existence is bleeding me dry. You know, but way down in my heart of hearts, way down in my soul of souls, way down, I know that I am a fortunate man to have known divine love. The world is in shambles. I'm just a young man, but it's getting a little bit old to me. I'm already aching. The years have been taking a little bit of a toll on me. But way down in my heart of hearts, way down in my soul of souls, way down, I know that I am a fortunate man to have known divine love. The siren is warning that everything is not quite alright. The city is sleeping, I'm down on my knees in the night tonight. Way down in my heart of hearts, way down in my soul of souls, way down, I know that I am a fortunate man to have known. Way down in my heart of hearts, way down in my soul of souls, way down, I know that I am a fortunate man to have known divine love, to have known divine love, to have known divine love, to have known.
He loved his wife and loved Rebecca. There were times I'd be sitting with him at a cafe or something at a truck stop, and we'd be talking about some stupid whatever, and I'd look over and he'd have tears coming down, just thinking about Rebecca or Janet and the pain of the distance.
It seemed like with Rebecca, he was just completely mystified and enamored with her. And whenever she wasn't coming over to our house with him, he was coming over with stories about the latest things she said and did, and he just was completely filled with wonder. I would rise from my bed with a question again, as I work to inherit the restless wind. The view from my window is cold and obscene. I want to touch what my eyes haven't seen.
Their package our virtues in cellulose dreams, and sold us the remnants till our
our pockets are clean, until our hopes fall round our feet like the dust of dead leaves, and we end up looking like what we believe. We are covered urchins running wild and unshod. We will always be remembered as the orphans of God. They will dig up these ruins and make fruits of our bones and blow a hymn to the memory of the orphans of God. Chance I catch your sudden eye, realize I have no words, but if you'd listen to me, if you'd listen to me, if you'd listen, you would hear me fencing with the windmills of my deepest fears, jousting with this armor that I've riveted on.
Mark wasn't a big star and he didn't have huge record company backing. A lot of his stuff was, you know, through his own, by his own devices or through his own, you know, the label he was involved with. And there wasn't a lot of money flying around, so we had to make a big-time record for small-time money. And it was great. He would sit right in front of the speakers at the console with the speakers on and a microphone hanging right here in front and just completely go the full distance and go for, you know, a performance every time. He always gave it everything. And that's what really knocked me out.
One of the most special things about my working relationship with Mark and also my friendship with Mark was that he understood the shadows and the ghosts that you wrestle with when you're trying to get something genuine on tape. He showed his love for me by creating the warmest, most comfortable atmosphere whereby I could actually just dare to be vulnerable and get something real to tape.
If you added all his songs up, by the time I eventually got to hear, or I guess I never have heard all of his songs, but the 4 or 5 later albums that he did, I remember after he died, I was flying somewhere, and I listened to all of them back to back, and you got a tremendous sense of somebody, of a truly questioning person who truly was interested in getting as deep into life as he could and understanding as much of it as he could, and was able to translate that into the songs, that quest, and very clearly. You didn't necessarily get that from hearing any one song, but the cumulative effect of all of that stuff was very, very powerful, and something, I mean, I don't really know. I suppose there's other people that you might get that kind of impression from, but I've never experienced it myself like that there was the vulnerability in it, and the refusal to take a stance on anything other than a kind of personal moral stance, which and even that was a questioning one, but there was obviously a point of view there informing the songs, but it was that vulnerability, I think, that really set him apart from listening to, you know, a whole bunch of Bob Dylan records back to back, for instance, where you get flashes of brilliance, but you don't get the sense that you're being invited into a person's intimate thoughts and feelings and so on, which you'd certainly do with Mark's stuff.
Great art on some level is it offends us, because it holds a mirror up to what we really are, and a lot of times love comes that way. You know, the truth comes to us as a hard ball, you know, and he didn't mince words, and that's very frightening, very threatening to most people. It was frightening and threatening to me, but yet I was attracted to it.
Mark Harrod was a great artist. Just because a person isn't famous, it doesn't mean they aren't every bit as great as, you know, Sting or whoever. I mean, Mark Harrod was in that category. I think, you know, probably his biggest fans were people like Bruce Cockburn, you know, or T-Bone Burnett when Mark was in the hospital, and it was looking real bad, you know. I remember driving somewhere and putting the tape in, and the words, it's like they just jumped out of the tape player at me. It was almost like Mark was making a statement, you know, the dust that'll come to these bones, and lines like that, you know, were really, they really had a whole new meaning at that point.
This is the first time Pierce and I have ever played together live, unless you count the times we played together when we were alive before, but in front of actual people and stuff.
This is the first time we ever rehearsed, too.
Yeah, you got that. That's close enough country music of this sort.
Hey, hey. All the unsaid words that I might be thinking, all the little signs that I might give you, well, they would not be enough, would not be enough. So we nod over coffee and say goodbye. Smile over coffee and turn to go. We know the drill and we do it well. We love it, we hate it, ain't that life? Oh, ain't that the place of the second hand? Oh, ain't that the way of the hour and the day? If I weren't so afraid and alone, they might pay me what I am worth, but it would not be enough. You deserve better, so we nod over coffee to go. Do whatever has to be done again today. Oh, get in that traffic and the time will fly. Look up at that sun and pray for rain. Oh, ain't that the curse of the second hand? Oh, no, ain't that the way of the hour and the day? Dam of time it cannot hold back. The dust that will surely come out these bones. And I will not have loved enough, could not have loved enough. If we could see with wiser eyes. All that is good and is so sad and so true. Still it will not be enough. Will never be enough. So we nod over coffee and spring the gold. Bolt the door, it's time to go. Out in the car with the radio on. Roll down the window and blow the horn. Oh, ain't that the curse of the second hand? Oh, ain't that the way of the hour and the day? Oh, ain't that the curse of the second hand? Yeah, yeah. Oh, ain't that the way of the hour and the day?
And I think that Mark really suffered, both emotionally and financially, for, for his integrity. But again, he was someone that was sort of an anchor for my heart, because I knew he could be trusted.
You come walking with a hurt in your soul, taking too much too lightly. It is no wonder that you're feeling so cold, shivering so politely. Cast away, cast away. You can find your way. looking with the hurt in your eye, gazing at sky above you. Well, you'll feel much better if you just go on and cry, 'cause you found somebody who will love you. So cast away, cast away. You can't find your way. Cast away, cast away. It will be okay. Yeah.
But by the time Victims of the Age came out, I think he definitely nailed something on a not only on something of his own sound, but definitely his own style of lyric writing. And I think for me that was the biggest influence on me, was just that he was just a really masterful lyricist.
Look over your shoulder and tell me what's coming. Tell me what is the bogey you're so afraid of. The eyes in the back of our heads can persuade that just for a moment mercy is swayed.
Tell me what's coming.
They look into your sad eyes. Tell me what you see. What is left of the child who is hiding behind them? Who longs to be laughing in places of light? Who knows that the morning will follow the night? Look into your sad eyes. Tell me what you see. If you must be afraid of yourself for feeling afraid of the fear you have felt. You will weather well in a climate of love. forgiveness to melt in the rain. Look over your shoulder, tell me what's coming. Look into your sad eyes, tell me what you see. Look over your shoulder and tell me what's coming. Look over your shoulder, tell me what's coming. Tell me what is the bogey that you're so afraid of. The eyes in the back of our heads can persuade that just for the moment mercy's sway. Look over your shoulder and tell me what's coming. Look into your sad eyes and tell me what you see. What is left of the small child who is hiding behind them? Who longs to be laughing in places of light? Who knows that the morning will follow the night? Look into your sad eyes and tell me what you see. If you must be afraid of yourself for being afraid of the fear you have felt. You will weather well in a climate of It takes more than your passion and more than your pain for the rock of forgiveness to melt in the rain. Look over your shoulder and tell me what's coming. Look into your sad eyes and tell me what you see. Look over your shoulder, tell me what's coming.
Thanks very much. Good night. Happy good night.
And the last song we did was Look Over Your Shoulder. Mark came off stage and went back, and the people were clapping and cheering. I mean, he did an amazing show. And he came back and just sort of smiled and said, "God bless you, good night," and walked off the stage. And he was in the back room, and people were still stomping and cheering. I said, "Mark, I think they want an encore." And he said, "You do it."
I knew as it was happening that this was a moment that I needed to treasure. And that is the sweetest thing God's ever done for me, is giving me that time with Mark.
It's a personal loss for me, and it left kind of a hole, not only just in losing a friend, but feeling like a piece of my history wasn't missing now.
You know, I really loved Mark, and I mean, that's just the bottom line.
I miss him.
you know, and it was very dear to me.
He was a very funny guy, you know. You would have been good to laugh more with him.
Mark's still around me. You know, he's still around.
Unaware that the struggle is the blood of the proof in choosing to believe the unbelievable truth. They have captured our siblings, they have rendered them mute, disputed our lineage and poisoned our roots. We have born from the brokers who have broken their oaths, and we're out on the street with a lump in our throats. We are sun-covered urchins, running wild and unshod. We will always be remembered as the orphans of God. They will dig up God, a hymn to the memory of the orphans of God.
Musician Mark Harrod had insurance. He also had recorded 12 albums and helped to produce parts of 13 others. On stage one night in Chicago, Mark suffered a heart attack. 7 days later, he suffered another one.
I dreamed of science and of history.
And I had an arrhythmia that led to a heart attack, and they gave him CPR, and it didn't take, and so he suffered from anoxia and went into a coma for about 7 weeks, and he had his heart operated on and everything, and his heart was fine. And from that, he just never recovered, from the coma and died 7 weeks later.
Mark left a wife, a daughter, and $80,000 worth of medical bills his insurance did not cover.
Bottom line, too, is that a lot of America isn't covered. And those that are covered, doesn't mean much.
We're going to overdub like the lead part on...
Today, Victoria is back recording. This time, it's one of Mark's songs in an effort to help his widow pay for his medical bills.
A frightened sense of self-death.
I'd hoped to work with him, and we had discussed going and recording in his studio at his house, and it never happened because he passed away.
And he actually played at the first benefit that they did for me at the Whiskey.